Death. What comes to your mind when you hear that word? What images right away are imagined by you? For many people I know, when we speak of death, they think of the Grim Reaper, the guy with the big black robe and the sickle and everything, who's come to cut down everything in the prime of life and destroy everything of value to you. Maybe other people have the image of Andrew from Touched by an Angel, the gentle, kind man in the white suit who comes to lovingly welcome somebody home to heaven. And perhaps many other things in between. But how we respond to the image of death should give us a wonderful insight into our own spirituality and our own attempts to follow the Lord. Are we living in this life looking for God to give us things here on earth that will make us happy, or are we living on this life to try to prepare ourselves for our eternal glory in heaven? Here on earth, we are only pilgrims. We don't really belong here. We're just on a journey. The place where we really belong is heaven itself. And in fact, we can see that even in wonderful moments in our lives. If we have days that we say, this was wonderful, this is a day I'll never forget, we sometimes, notice, even in the midst of all of that joy, there seems to be something lacking. It's not complete. Just think of children perhaps on Christmas morning when they open their gifts and they get everything that they've wanted, and yet there still seems to be something lacking. It didn't fulfill all of our longings. And nothing on this earth can fulfill all the longings in our heart. Our heart can only be filled when it is fully present to God. And that will never happen in this life. That will only happen when we enter into heaven. And so entering heaven is meant to be the place where all of our desires, all of our dreams, all of our wants are fulfilled. And so our death should be seen by us as a happy moment, as something to look forward to, as the day when we finally enter into the fullness of everything God has prepared for us. Sadly, of course, many people don't see it that way. And what Jesus is talking about in the Beatitudes today that we hear is a strong reminder to us that anybody whose mind is only set on the things of this earth, well, woe to us, because we're only getting our happiness, our reward now. And we all know very well the old saying, you can't take it with you. So, money in the bank and a big house and a Lamborghini will not bring us to heaven. When we get there, none of that follows us. Only what we have prepared in this life. And this life is the testing ground, if you will. In fact, it is based on how we live this life that the Lord determines whether or not we will enter into the glory of His kingdom. Because we are meant, here is the time where we show our devotion to the Lord by our devotion to Him and our devotion to one another, by living a life desiring the things that lead to heaven, all the blessings that the Lord talks about in the Beatitudes, and not in merely looking for the things of earth. And in fact, I think even if we look at that image of the Grim Reaper that so many people have, let's look at that a little bit more closely. The man is carrying a sickle. Now, what is a sickle? It's not a weapon. It's not something used in war. In fact, a sickle is used, it's a farming instrument. It's used for gathering the wheat, especially at the end of the growing season. So it's meant to gather in all the fruits. And using the sickle for people who are farmers was actually a joyful moment, because it meant that all of the toil, all of the hard work that the farmers spent day after day, planting the seeds, nourishing them, weeding it, making sure it had the proper water, and everything is finally paid off. And so now when we use the sickle, the harvest comes in and they can rejoice because they have the fruits of their labor. And so those who have labored carefully will have great fruits to celebrate and to show for their rewards. And the same thing for us, when we come before the Lord, when the Grim Reaper, if you will, brings the sickle, well, it's meant to gather together all the fruits of our labor in serving the Lord, that we can present a bounty to the Lord and say, Lord, look what happened. Look what I did for you. These are the fruits of my labor. And just like a farmer, if he doesn't go out every day and care for the harvest and for the plants that he planted, only occasionally goes out to water them, whatever, well, when the sickle comes, he's not going to have any great produce to bring before the Lord. or onto his table. And the same thing with us. If we're not living a life trying to follow the Lord faithfully and living the life that he has created us to live to bear fruit for him abundantly, at the end of our life, when the sickle is used to gather all of the fruits of our labor, if we've not done it, there will be very little to offer to the Lord. But if we have followed the Lord faithfully, day after day, done what he has asked of us, then when we stand before him, we will have the fruits of all of our labor, and we'll be able to say, Lord, this is what I did for you. And he'll say to us, well done, brave and faithful servant. Enter into the kingdom prepared for you from the foundation of the world. And so our challenge on earth is to listen to the Lord and follow him. And those Beatitudes give us a wonderful foundation on which to live our lives. However, sometimes when we hear the Beatitudes, they don't really challenge us, especially those of us who are lifers. If we've been following the Lord since our youth, well, we've heard it Sunday after Sunday in the gospel readings, year after year. And when we read it in the scriptures, we say, yeah, I know all that. And it really doesn't challenge us. But for those who see the scripture for the first time, it can be a great challenge for them. It's shocking because it completely bucks everything that the world tells us is important. Blessed are the poor in spirit. Blessed are the meek and humble. Doesn't the world tell us, go out and make something for yourself? Go out and, make all the world serve you? And it means to completely see things in a different way. And when we follow the way of the world, of course, we know how disappointing that is. And look at our world around us. Of course, we're seeing the fruits of that. The more the world decides it doesn't need God, we can do things on our own, the worse the world is getting. And so when we see things God's way and do things his way, that's what makes the difference. And again, for people who are hearing it for the very first time, it's often something radical. I'm specifically thinking of a young man in my last parish who had grown up with no religious affiliation whatsoever. His parents were not involved in any religion. He went to no church or synagogue or mosque or anything like that growing up. But he started dating a girl who was a faithful Catholic in our parish, and we introduced the Christ Life program there. And she decided to come, and she asked him to come with her. And he said yes. And he came to the sessions, and in the very first session, he was so impressed by everything he heard there that he said, this is truth. This is the way to happiness. I want this. And he asked to be baptized. And I had the privilege of baptizing him at the Easter Vigil a few years ago, and this fall I'll have the privilege of marrying him and his fiancée. And so the gospel, which is so often just cliche perhaps to us, for him was radical because he'd never really heard that before. And I've often thought if we could step back and hear the gospel with fresh ears, hear what Jesus says without all of our preconceived notions, without everything we've known from our youth, maybe it would challenge us and make a complete difference in our lives. And we might say, wow, this is amazing. This is something that really makes a difference. And what a challenge to be able to listen to the gospel as if we'd never heard it before and really live it out. When we take the Beatitudes, to be poor in spirit, to be humble, to be single-hearted, all the things the Lord tells us, try to live it out in our lives. My friends, what a difference it makes. We will never get up in the morning and say, my life is boring. In fact, every single day will be a challenge to live the gospel the way Jesus tells us to live it in the Beatitudes and in everything else he teaches us. If you want a challenge, if you find your life is boring and you say, why do I get up every day and do the things I do? Well, the challenge to us is very simple. Listen to the gospel of Jesus, take it seriously, and live it each and every day of your life. And what a difference it will make if we can just hear it with fresh ears. Some years back, Kellogg's discovered that they were having a lack in sales of cornflakes. And they discovered it was due to, this was the time of all the newfangled cereals coming along, the things with the dried fruits and the chopped nuts and the marshmallow bits and all that stuff in it. And so I remember reading something about how they had tried to approach it and said, what can we do to get people to buy cornflakes again? And some people suggested, well, maybe we have to add the dried fruits and all that stuff to it. But somebody wisely said, no, cornflakes are fine just the way they are. We don't need to improve them. We just need to remind people how beautiful and wonderful and tasteful they are. So some of you may remember the commercial. They had somebody with a bowl in front of them. And they looked at it and said, "What's this? All it is flakes. Where's the dried fruit? Where's the nuts? Where are the marshmallow bits?" But then the voice says to them, "Taste it." And they taste it and said, "Wow, but it's so beautiful, so simple, just as it is." And then the slogan comes up, "Kellogg's Corn Flakes, taste them again for the first time." Well, maybe that's what you and I need to do with Jesus. Not look for all the newfangled things that the world tells us are going to make a difference in our lives, but remember that the gospel that Jesus gave us is perfect just as the way it is. There's no way to improve the gospel. All we have to do is live it out the way Jesus gave it to us. And if we can step back and read the gospel without those preconceived notions, maybe it will really challenge us and it will make a difference in the way they live. And our lives will never be boring, but each and every day will be a wonderful challenge in how to follow the Lord. And what a difference it will make in our lives here and now. And in following it, we will bear great fruit for the Lord, so that when our death comes, we will be able to bring tremendous fruits before Him and say, "Lord, this is what I did for you throughout my life," because we listened to the gospel and took it seriously. Jesus Christ, taste Him again for the first time. May Jesus Christ be praised.